This is the Secular Nation Podcast, an official production of the Atheist Alliance of America, bringing you breaking news and stories about the intersection of the atheist free thought movement and government action. Here are your hosts, Justin Clark and Jeremy Casey. Hey everybody, this is Secular Nation, the official podcast of the Atheist Alliance of America. I am your co-host, Justin Clark. I'm here with my other co-host, Jeremy Casey. How's it going, sir?
It is going fine. It's been quite a time since we last recorded.
Holy shit. It has been a long, 12 days.
I think the episode, is it episode 5 that dropped last?
Yes.
Didn't that come out after the inauguration? Well, we recorded that before that.
We did record it, so this is the first episode we're recording in the Trump era.
Oh. Yeah, I hope the name changes in the coming years, but
I hope so too, because I feel I think I vomited in my mouth a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's just a travesty, really. But the work of podcasters, media outlets against the status quo are more important than ever, so let's get at it.
I agree completely. So this week we've decided to cover a couple different stories for you. They're not that related to some of the specific big news stories going on right now, specifically the travel ban that's been going on, the executive order that President Trump signed. For more information about that, I highly recommend listening to the newest episode of Vox's podcast, The Weeds. That's a great primer on what's going on with the travel ban and a bunch of other Trump stuff. I highly recommend that that you guys check out that. But this week, Jeremy had a really great idea of talking about this new campaign called Indivisible, and it's essentially sort of a tea party for the left. And how can we on the left get sort of power back in local elections and state elections and then in federal elections and create sort of a groundswell movement that can sort of counteract some if not most of what Trump is trying to do. So Jeremy, if you mind going into detail about that a little bit.
Well, it was basically, it started off as a Google Doc. I know a Google Doc by former congressional staffers. And they were, a part of the Democratic Party, part of congressional offices, while the Tea Party really ramped up in 2010. So they decided in the Trump era, we're going to need a mobilized grassroots movement from the bottom up. And they wanted to coalesce a guide that anybody can use, distribute. They have an audiobook version of it if you would rather listen to it. They are open to suggestions and changes. And it's really just there so that we know the tactics that the Tea Party used to get us into this current mess. Because you can track it all back to that as a modern movement that really put Trump at the forefront of the Republican Party, and then into the White House. So we wanted to kind of go over some things. It's all at indivisibleguide.com. There's already some groups that have been going to local events of members of Congress, which they call MOCs. So you can actually see some videos online of these groups in actions. And they have a few tactics, but I think if you can go to the guide and read the reasons and kind of the successes, but I think it would behoove us to kind of more go on the actionable parts of the guide. So what steps you can take to become an engaged citizen and what you can do to kind of stop the Trump movement. So did you read through on the section 4?
I did. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, I think those have some really nice steps. So I kind of went through them when I read the guide. What you're going to want to do is find your 3 members of Congress. I didn't find a ready-made tool out there. I had to go to congress.gov for a second. I realized that was a crap one, but the Indiana State website actually has a great one where you can put in your address and it will tell you your state representative, your state senator, your two state senators, and then which representative is yours. Mine's Rakita. So I would suggest finding out all of those and going to their websites. Sign up for the newsletter. and just kind of keep an eye on what's going on.
Cool. My congressman is my congressperson is Susan Brooks. Since I've just moved, I'm not south enough to have Andre Carson as my congressman, sadly enough. So it's Susan Brooks. One of the things I'd like to just kind of back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the Tea Party politically and sort of historically, and why these people with this indivisible guide wanted to sort of be inspired by the Tea Party. So the people who started to put together this indivisible guide, they were former congressional aides who worked for progressives in Congress. And they were there when the Tea Party happened, and the Tea Party, of course, kind of starts in 2008 as a result of the banking bailouts, and then it really gets to full froth in 2009 and 2010. And one of the things that they did early on with this sort of grassroots movement. Now, I know a lot of people thought of the Tea Party as being sort of a AstroTurf sort of version of activism, where it was funded by like Fox News or Glenn Beck or the Koch brothers. And that's certainly true. There was that for sure. But a lot of it was also grassroots stuff and ground swelling. And a couple of things that they did was, one, they would do these sort of meetups where they would talk about issues. And then the other thing that they would do is they would basically go to the town halls of their congresspeople and essentially berate them until they gave them the answers they wanted.
Yeah. I mean, it was no shame on their part. I mean, a lot of times they were spreading lies, racism, bigotry, but their tactics of physically going to the events and shouting down their congressmen when they consider them traitors to the party or traitors to the principle, I don't know, seemed to be very effective. And now we're awash with non-compromising Republicans.
For sure. I thought that the quote because every chapter on the website has a quote before it, and the one that struck me the most was by Jonathan Rauch, who I'm a huge fan of. I've read his book, Kindly Inquisitors, which is, I think, the book on free speech. But the quote is, if they succeed or even half succeed, the Tea Party's most important legacy may be organizational, not political. I think this is actually quite right.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. They really, and the guide really, goes from the fact that these were local communities that could have been 10, maybe less people who kind of got into Facebook groups, started sharing their philosophy, sharing their shared values. And, there was always somebody in the group that was keeping tabs on their actual representatives. And then they would do, it's basically play defense. So they, believed, some of them may have believed in white America. Some of them may have believed in conservative government. Some of them might have shouted, get the government out of my Medicare.
A lot of misspelled signs.
Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So obviously there are more people who are maybe not supportive of all Clinton's policies, but anti-Trump's policies. So we now are in the defensive mode. Some people like to talk about values, and we have plans, and never forget that. But really, we're going to have to just make sure to keep the Democrats honest, keep them fighting for us, because they're the only people to stop any of Trump's agenda at this point, which has been shown to be anti-secular, anti-humanitarian, anti-climate science. The whole nine yards. So. Oh,
for sure. From the travel ban to the silencing of government departments, particularly the Department of the Interior, the National Park Service, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, the Department of Agriculture, NASA. This is going on and on and on, where they even set up alternative Twitter accounts to get information out to people.
Well, those are fantastic.
I don't think we've ever seen this level of presidential or executive branch leaks happen consistently ever in this short amount of time.
Yep. We're not even to 2 weeks, right?
We're not even to 2 weeks. We will be to 2 weeks and 2 days from this recording.
Oh my God. And it just keeps coming. This is a mountain. I think it's part of their plan to just kind of test the waters of tyranny and see what sticks and see what gets the most reaction.
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree, because I think the thing is that, with this immigration order that Trump signed, he didn't consult the Justice Department. He didn't consult the Department of Homeland Security, INS. There were people literally on a plane when he signed it, and then could not come out of the plane because the order went into effect. And then you had the acting attorney general not upholding it. Then you had a court ruling against it, and then Trump fired his acting attorney general. Then he fired his acting INS chief. It reminds me very much of during the Watergate period, when Nixon fired his attorney general and his deputy attorney general when they would not follow his order not to release his tapes.
Which was late in his presidency, not...
We were 5 years in at that point. Yeah, we were 5 years in when that happened.
And that was the last time any attorney general was asked to resign in that fashion, right?
Pretty much, that acrimoniously. And I know the humorist Andy Borowitz said, so we're on track, essentially. One thing I think that's important to note, and I think this is something that is very important to understand about this indivisible guide and what we can learn from the Tea Party, is just how much was accomplished by very, very few people. I noticed that there was this. There was this particular statistic with one of the chapters on this website that said that the vast majority of Tea Partiers didn't even go to rallies, or they didn't even donate money to causes.
1 in 5 did.
Yeah.
So 1 in 5 self-identified Tea Partiers, not just Republicans or conservatives. Only 1 in 5 donated to the cause, and I'm sure most of that was just money, and the other, there was even a less proportion of that were actual activists going to town halls and really keeping tabs,
Exactly. And that translates to Trump's success, because if you look at Trump's success generally, if you look at how he did in the primary, and then you eventually look at how he did in the general election, it's about 42%. Once he got to about 42% of primary voters, he didn't really get any higher than that. I mean, it pretty much stayed there. Donald Trump was elected to the presidency with a minority.
Oh, no doubt. From the beginning, from the primaries to the actual election. I mean, he hasn't had. There's never been a mandate.
No.
At any point in his election. So, and they've been calling that since they won it. Bannon with the media needs to shut up and listen. We haven't even gotten to alternative facts.
No, we haven't even talked about that. I mean, there's literally been so much going on. The thing I think that is kind of interesting as well about this Indivisible Guide is talking about how to talk about your member of Congress, or your MOC, and how an MOC might have particular political views or ideas or convictions, but they care first and foremost about making sure that they get reelected so that they can carry out those values. And so some of the things that they say you should kind of do is make sure that you're a verified constituent from their district. Write about them in editorials, advocacy, having contributions, either groups of constituents, locally famous individuals, or big individual campaign contributors, concrete specific asks that entail a verifiable action, and then a single ask in your communications. So a lot of times it's very important when you call your congressperson that you call them about a very specific thing. So for example, I just called my representative Susan Brooks last night to ask specifically for her to support the National Endowment for the Humanities and to back up against and stand against Donald Trump's proposed budget, which would eliminate the NEH. It was a very specific thing that I called about. My wife did the same thing. And so you have to be very specific with these people, because the more specific you are, the more you can affect change, because you're just chipping away at that one bit, and then you can get that done, and then you move on to the next thing. This is the problem I think that Democrats had, was they tried to do all these different things all at once. But what conservatives are smart at doing, and they've done this now with abortion, and they've done this with fracking, and they've done this with pipelines, and they've done this with other issues, is whittle away at that one particular issue, one piece at a time, and keep hitting it, and they succeed. So we have to do the same thing.
Right, and it's all from different fine pointed angles. You know, the issue is specific. They usually have some nice catchy slogan, and they usually, you know, all band together to ridicule any dissent online. You might have seen that during the campaign. There would be single issues where you'd get a lot more reaction from the right-wing people, because they're all just hanging out in these Facebook groups and, like, you know, from the ground up, affecting the conversation to make them have an outsized voice. So the more specific, the more targeted, the more accountable you can hold your representative. Because if you're like, I want health care, there's 100 different ways they could chip away at that or snake out of a proposal they did. But if you're fine-tuned in your support, you have a collective group that kind of supports that issue, you can keep a scorecard and then hold them to that scorecard over and over again, build up over their legislative history. And you can use that against them in their re-election campaigns, or if they're trying to move to higher offices or positions, you just have a history of questioning them and holding them to the fire. Did they listen to their constituents? Republican Tea Partiers really kept that down. You know, who were the traitor ones? They got them out. They primaried them. They didn't really compromise at all with their own party. We're at the point where we're going to have to do things like that. You're going to have to figure out who the bad apples are, if you're in a democratically controlled area. I feel like you're going to have to, if you're in a solidly red area, still call them. You are a constituent. You band together and get those loud voices. You may not be able to capitulate on the national, big issues. You may not be able to get them to capitulate, but you can at least chip away at the underside, which then kind of, takes their whole ideological strong positions and weakens them over time as well, so that you may be able to get them out of there. Get maybe a more moderate Republican, which is a win in this day and age. If you can even get them unpopular in their own group, but you can't swing it blue, you may get just a better friend in general for more issues overall come 2018, at least in the House, depending on the Senate races you're running. I don't know who's up for re-election in 2018 in the Senate, but the House every 2 years, guys. Every 2 years.
Yeah, and the thing is that people need to keep in mind, too, is with the Senate, the Democrats are going into 2018 at a disadvantage because many of the seats that are up for grabs are Democratic or Democratic-leaning districts. So they're going to have trouble. This goes back to a bigger problem that I've seen on the Democratic side and the progressive side over the last 8 years, is that we've sacrificed everything for the presidency, which is fine to some extent in that we got President Obama, which is pretty cool. And I think a good thing for the country, but we sacrificed everything else in the decision to go and support him. I listened to a podcast recently with Representative Keith Ellison, who's running for the head of the DNC, and he said that the Democratic National Committee needs to stop being the Democratic Presidential Committee, and it needs to stop being so obsessed with the presidency and national offices and start caring more about those down ballot candidates, because if they don't, then we're going to run into the problem that we're in now, which is that the Democrats are in the worst electoral position that they've been in probably since the early 1920s.
And that's really calling for a top-down support. This movement, really takes out the need for top-level support. It would be great. Proper funding for local elections, really hitting state and local elections, hitting it from the ground up so that we can keep the executive branch in check. But in the end, if we all kind of coalesce in our own Tea Party groups, we'll get the supporters in there. So I like Keith Ellison. Pete, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But yeah, It's like Buttgieg or something. I will learn how to pronounce that next podcast, but he has some nice, he has some nice ideas.
I liked him a lot, and I do like him. I think either him or Ellison would both be very good. I
Yes.
think they need to go with somebody outside of DC who is connected to local issues, so that we have a two-pronged approach, right? So we do stuff like this Indivisible Guide, where it's the grassroots, where we're organizing and we're going to the coffee clatches and we're going to the town halls and we're calling and we're going to offices and we're organizing, maybe even running for local races. And then on top of that, you have a Democratic Party nationally that starts recognizing the value of having more down ballot support. Because when it comes down to it, issues like a woman's right to choose and environmental protections and raising the minimum wage and tuition-free college, all the things that we as liberals or progressives that we want, they can happen in a step-by-step way. You're not going to get it all overnight, but if the Trump administration is truly the clusterfuck that I think it is, we do have a shot.
Right. And, if you want to sit back and hope that the DNC fixes its structural issues that have kind of been highlighted over the past 2 years, they're going to have to fix some shit internally. There's going to be a little bit of time before they enact their stuff, so I feel like the grassroots is going to have to hold the line until the DNC can get its shit together and see what's going on in the bottom. So I highly encourage the troops to get mobilized in that fashion to show the top. Because if we can get the top to help, then we'll meet in the middle. It'll be faster. We'll have a stronger movement in a quicker fashion. But, it's all going to start from the grassroots.
I totally agree. Because the Tea Party didn't have to become its own party. The Republican Party the Tea Party became the Republican Party.
Exactly.
It just took over an existing infrastructure. That's all it had to do. We can do the same thing on our side.
And it's ripe. It's ripe infrastructure. All the bones are still there. So, we need to invest into there. And going back to the guide itself, it has a lot of actionable things. So just find out who your members of Congress are. Find out all their contact details. Save it in your phone as a contact. Congressman, blah, blah, blah. Get their email saved into your program so that it auto-completes when you want to, when you have a thought. Just send it out. Why not? They're supposed to be listening to you. And that's how you can first start. Plenty of groups are forming. You can form your own group. You can latch onto existing movements. I would suggest finding a organization. If you think there needs to be more organization, work within it, pitch your ideas. Maybe you can get to somewhere, but I wouldn't, don't do a bunch of competing groups. There needs to be a singular vision. People need to be focused on facts, or not facts, but focused on specific issues, specific actionable and gradable asks to their representatives. The site itself, I actually came across a site called fivecalls.org, which obviously is a left tint. And they basically give you just 5 calls a day. You put in your area code, they give you your representatives, and you have a list of 5 calls you can make on 5 different issues, I believe. And it just says who to call. There are scripts there, and the scripts are really good. They're, they're just focused on the issue. They don't deviate. There's a section that says put your thoughts in here, but you could just ignore that and say it as is. And, if people start hearing a bunch of scripts, I'm sure that's reported to congressmen, but the fact that people, there have been studies that what is most effective for a citizen to their representative are calls. I don't know why. I think it's because representatives aren't on the phones and call centers for 4 hours a day, and that's just what they respond to. And that's for donations, but they seem to respect a call more than even a letter. But that gets back to public, keep it locally public. Every local paper has a editorial section, I believe, where you can write in and they will post it online and sometimes print it in the paper. You can do state newspapers as well for your state representatives. And people might not read yours and go, you're the next, BuzzFeed writer. I don't know. But they will, if they see a volume of that going through the local papers, they're going to take notice. And that gets right back to the town halls. Find their in-district events is what they call an indivisible guide. And that's when your representatives come back to the district that voted for them and that they're supposed to be caring about. And, go in there and just don't make it a nice media affair where they can kiss a baby and get some good photo ops. Make your voice heard. And if you need to tilt the news story to the fact that he's not listening to constituents or she's not listening to concerns in her community, that news story doesn't just end at the next election cycle if they are reelected. That piles on throughout their career. So, we can change politicians. You can turn them. They're pretty much, just in it. Not just in it for the popularity. There's some good ones, but a lot of them kind of see it as get reelected, need to be popular with my constituents. Who are the loudest voices saying dissent? Well, I need to respond to them. Unless, of course, Donald Trump gets the troopers involved and just starts blatantly stomping political dissent and media organizations, but we can fight back then too.
For sure. There's another great quote on this site that says, we need in every bay and community a group of angelic troublemakers, which is from the civil rights icon Baynard Rustin. I totally agree. And so, Jeremy, let's segue from grassroots organizing to Nazi punching.
I'm completely down. I just watched some more memes of Richard Spencer getting punched. I love it. I'm unashamedly loving it. Okay.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of arguments, and I think this segues perfectly with indivisible. Okay.
Okay.
We need to be indivisible as a movement. That's the whole point of the Indivisible Guide's name. Okay. And I got some slack. I saw a lot of slack on the internet of enjoying Richard Spencer getting punched, cold clocked. Of course, it wasn't a pretty respectable punch. Okay, it wasn't a duel. I understand that.
It was a sucker punch.
It was a sucker punch. I heard he got punched twice in that date. It made me even happier because I believe there needs to be a social cost to being a Nazi, and words no longer matter. A nice punch to the face is not lethal. I have a lot of thoughts on this.
So let's just back up just for a second. So for those who are not in the know, Richard Spencer is the head of what's called the National Policy Institute, which is this think tank that is interested in white nationalism. It was founded in 2005 by publisher William Regnery II. And it became essentially the intellectual hub of what we now call the alt-right. There's an excellent new piece out on Skeptic Magazine's website, skeptic.com, called The Rise of the Alt-Right and the Politics of Polarization in America by Dr. George Michael. And so Spencer was giving just kind of out on Inauguration Day, and he was kind of expressing himself about white nationalism and why Trump's election is the boom that the alt-right needed in order to get sort of a Anglo-European domination of the country or whatever. And some protester punched him right in the fucking mouth. And I'm not going to lie, it was kind of great.
It was great because he was going down to his little Pepe pin. He has a Pepe pin.
Yeah.
It's a fucking meme, guys. You got pins made? It's crazy.
First off, it's sad that they had to take such a great meme. Pepe was a great meme, and they made it a symbol of racism.
I just read an article where apparently the guy who originally created Pepe, he's just wanted him to be a chill dude, a chill frog, hanging with his friends, being a 20-something. And then the alt-right took it and made it kind of into a Nazi symbol, which you can find Pepe memes with swastikas.
Oh, for sure.
It's blatant. And he just said about Richard Spencer getting punched, once is not enough. Or once is never enough.
So let's have this ethical question, because this is something I've heard on a couple different sides of the atheist community, right? So there's those in the atheist community, people like Dan Arrell, right, who writes for the Anthropology blog and Pathos, who's been very vocal about, yeah, Nazis should be fucking punched. Like, we don't need to give quarter to these fucking people. He believes in the eradication of an entire fucking race. So yeah, like if he gets popped in the mouth, I'm not going to lose any sleep. But then you have people on the other side of this debate who are sort of in the atheist movement. People like Dave Rubin and Jerry Coyne and others who've said that no matter how despicable a person's views are, that they shouldn't be punched, they shouldn't be facing violence. What's your response to that, Jeremy?
Well, I agree that they shouldn't be punched. Like, legally, that guy should be held accountable for cold clocking him in public. The justice system should work itself out. But Richard Spencer should be memeified. His punch should be seen as a symbol of a cathartic release valve on a nation that's literally letting Nazis take over. Bannon is the biggest threat to our democracy I've ever seen. And he oversaw Breitbart, which whipped up the alt-right sect into what eventually became the voting bloc that got Donald Trump into office. Richard Spencer is a clear, I said this on Facebook, he's a clear and present Nazi, okay? Which obviously is a reference to a clear and present danger. This is not, calling your Uncle Tom a Nazi sympathizer because he said something about Trump at dinner and punch him in the face. Don't fucking do that. That's ridiculous. But this guy's on the street talking about white supremacy, talking about white nationalism, talking about the master race. He's held Nazi salutes at private events with alt-right people. There is no doubt.
He literally said, "Hail Trump."
Hail Trump.
Hail Trump.
Which it doesn't have the same ring as Hail Hitler because there's no alliteration. But
yeah,
I don't know what Tail Trump. Tail Trump. That's a good one for us actually. Tail him. keep an eye on him. Either way, this is, even if this is a fight to have in philosophical capacity, this is not the fight for the left to have at all. There is nothing to be gained from this. Nazis should be universally hated, they should be called out for what they are, and everybody in America needs to wake the fuck up and remember Nazis are bullshit. It's a failed policy, it's intellectually dishonest, and they're hiding on Christian supremacy, which further devalues the message of Jesus to Christians or whatever. Causing more Christian supremacy and white nationalism. They're just like coalescing into this massive tumor on society. And they're going to point at the Muslims first, and they're going to go to the blacks, or then the Mexicans, and then they're going to go to the blacks. That's the way I see it. So if he gets punched in the face, and he hates the memes that are coming out, and they're hilarious, I almost think of a moral imperative to share it. Do not go out and punch Nazis, but you have a moral imperative to share this and let it be known that Nazis get punched.
Yeah.
That's my take.
It reminds me of, I can't remember the name of the band. It might have been Minor Threat or Dead Kennedys, but they have that song, Nazi Punks Fuck Off. It's not Nazi punks, let's have a conversation. It's Nazi punks fuck off.
Yeah. And Dylan Roof was made into an extremist from these parts of the internet.
People forget that the thing that was like insane to me about Dylan Roof was he had this jacket, right? And he had a bunch of flags and shit on it. He had the flag of fucking Rhodesia, which was an African colonial country where black people were ruled over universally by European white people. And essentially an apartheid-like state. It's, Rhodesia is now, I think, was Zimbabwe or something.
Sounds about right.
He had a fucking flag of Rhodesia, okay? I mean, how can... My whole attitude about Richard Spencer being punched is like, I believe that freedom of speech is a fundamental human right. And I believe that people should be free to express themselves without fear of being persecuted either with violence or by the state. Having said that, when he got popped in the mouth, I didn't feel that bad. That's that's the moral impulse in me to not feel bad about it. I'm upset in the sense that I don't want that to continue to happen to everybody, but the fact the fact that he got popped in the mouth, well, like I've been saying to people, like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. You know, I'm not.
I'm going to gain sleep over it, actually. More restful sleep. Just imagining those memes, those videos is great.
It's hard. I mean, there's a quote of his out there, and I'm paraphrasing something along the lines of like, you know, we keep hearing from people about, you know, how do we solve the unemployment problem with the African American community, or how do we solve this with the blacks? And he's like, why doesn't anybody ever ask why we just don't get rid of them? And it's like, holy shit.
Wow.
When you're a guy who says shit like that and you get popped in the mouth, it's hard for me to give you sympathy. It just is.
Yeah. This conflate, like, it's not like anybody pulled a gun on him and shot him, okay? Don't do that, because he'll be a martyr. It's not like somebody pulled a knife on him and started stabbing him. It's not even like somebody sat there, threatened him, scared the shit out of him, and then just punched him in the face. Like, it was just out of the blue. He was looking at his Pepe frog, smiling with his goofy-ass smile, his stupid hair, it was already messy, okay? This was my favorite part of the video. His hair was already messy from the wind. That dude cold clocked him. He ran away like a little bitch, and the camera zoomed in on him, and you could see him look back, and he straightened up his hair. Messed up his hair. His hair was already fucking messed up. There is video evidence. I'm sorry. He should have fixed it before he got on camera.
Well, he already has like that Nazi taper haircut anyway.
Oh yeah, it's like Hitler Youth, but he's like fucking 30.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't feel that. I'm just not going to feel that bad about it. I don't. And the fact that it's a meme, and the fact that my hope is that for most people, when they think Richard Spencer, they think two things: white supremacist, and he's been popped in the mouth. Like, that's kind of...
Right. And I want them to know white supremacist, not just random Trump supporter gets punched in the mouth. Like, that needs to be stated, which is also why it needs to be shared, because this shit's probably making the rounds in the right-wing circles as the leftists are trying to stop our freedom of speech. And the people in the middle are like, oh, these protesters. No, this is a white supremacist. I don't even know who that fucking dude is. I think he was a part of a commie group or somebody, the guy who actually punched him.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I know there were anarchist groups.
Group or something?
Yeah, I know there were some anarchist groups that were they were the ones who smashed up the Starbucks and all that in Washington.
Okay, see, and I'm not saying go join their group because they punched Richard Spencer. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Don't even go out and punch him again. It's already happened, and we got some memes. Give it some time, guys. If we're still in deep shit in another 2 years, maybe it's another time for a Richard Spencer pop.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, man, like I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in people should not be persecuted for their beliefs. Having said all that, him getting popped in the mouth, it's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing that's ever fucking happened. It's not like Noam Chomsky got popped in the mouth. You know, it's not like Barack Obama got popped in the mouth. You know what I mean? It's or like who's a famous conservative who's actually kind of decent. It's not like Ben Sass got popped in the mouth. It's fucking Richard Spencer of all people, and fuck him. And you know, he's going to be doing a college tour this year. I saw that, and I'm not going to be that surprised if he doesn't get popped in the mouth again.
Right. I mean, you put yourself out there, you know, you kind of got to, I don't even know why a high profile Nazi like that wouldn't have bodyguards. I think that's kind of on him.
Well, that's my whole thing, because I know, like, when Milo Yiannopoulos, who writes for Breitbart, he travels with like a whole group of people. Yeah,
exactly, and you got to do that. I mean, that's just a smart move. If you're that dumb, it kind of was coming to you.
Yeah.
Either way, I just want to point out that this is I feel like this is an unproductive. Obviously, you got some enjoyment philosophically. Obviously, people should be able to speak their minds, but you're not gonna waste your time philosophizing about what this means for the anti-violence movement. And that's just all I want. Let people enjoy this. And the left needs to just get busy getting rid of Trump. If Richard Spencer gets popped again, don't lose sleep and just focus on the issue at hand.
For sure.
And have a good laugh. Maybe do a share. I read an ethicist's view on it, and he said don't share it, as you know, that's kind of ethically murky. I disagree 100%.
Yeah, because when you do the moral calculus of it, it's like sharing a video of a Nazi getting popped in the face versus actual white supremacists or Nazis getting into actual political power. Which one's worse?
Right.
What I mean?
The Nazis getting into power.
A pop in the mouth is much better than, ethnic cleansing and racial genocide.
I 100% agree, and I hope our listeners agree. Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, you can email me at thedailyclark@gmail.com. I feel completely and utterly in the middle on this issue. I don't agree with the total free speech brigade who are always just I don't agree with them necessarily, and I don't necessarily agree that we should go around beating people up. I just kind of feel somewhere in the middle on this. I think, Jeremy, you're probably a little bit more on the side of fuck it, punch him in the mouth than me.
Yeah, secularjak@gmail.com. Please send me all the memes. If you just want to write a letter about how happy it made you on that day, I'll read it.
Oh, yeah.
I will share in your joy.
Let me know, and then if you're going to email me to call me a cuck, that's fine too,
Oh, yeah. That'll be fun too. That'll be fun.
Send me all of your Pepe memes. I need all of the Pepe memes.
You need to archive them?
Please.
For the History Museum of, the hopefully failed alt-right Nazi revival.
Exactly. We're going to have, the meme museum, the meme-seum, and we'll have Pepe there. So.
Oh, no doubt. And once again, if you want to get active, I highly suggest the indivisibleguide.com, because there's a lot of news going around, and I focus on your senator, congressman, and get your voice heard there. And pay attention to national issues because they matter, and you'll have to bring them up. But you can focus that shit down.
Totally.
Indivisibleguide.com.
Totally agree. Also, just a couple other plugs. Definitely check us out on our website, atheistallianceamerica.org. That's where all the episodes are. We're also available on iTunes. Let us know how you're listening to the show. Let us know if you'd like us to put it up on YouTube, which is something I've thought about doing for my personal channel and for other channels. And then check out our other related websites, philosophicalatheism.com, Facebook.com/philosophicalatheism. Go give us a like. We're growing new members. Join our forum at philosophicalatheism.com. For Secular Nation, I'm Justin Clark.
I'm Jeremy Casey.
And have a great week, everybody.